Good morning. I'm going to call to order the Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District Board of Directors meeting for Tuesday, July 16th, 2019. We will start with a salute to the flag. Commissioner Lucy, would you lead us this morning?
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Von Hartum, Chair.
Present.
Bob Lucy, Vice Chair.
Here.
Marcia Burke-Bigler.
Here.
Kitty Jung.
Present.
Jeannie Herman.
Here.
Fire Chief Charles Moore.
Here.
And Deputy District Attorney Nathan Edwards.
Here.
Sir, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item number 3, Chief, public comment.
Mr. Chairman, item 3 is public comment. Comment heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the Board of Fire Commissioners' agenda. The district will also hear public comment during individual action items with comment limited to 3 minutes per person, and comments are to be made to the Board of Fire Commissioners as a whole.
Thank you, Chief. Madam Clerk, is there anyone signed in for public comment?
Mr. Chairman, there is nobody signed in.
Okay.
I will. Sorry I'm late.
Why don't you come down and you can fill the card out later, sir? Good morning. Please identify yourself.
Good morning. My name is Ken Prentice, just a citizen, 89512. And I'd just like to address very quickly, I sent out a couple of emails last night, and it was addressing one of the issues we have in Washoe County, which is the shooting range is closed Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. Now, the challenge with that is that we have no safe place to shoot, especially with long guns. And so we want to eliminate those spark problems and the fire problems as much as we can. If we look at the cost to go out there and send all those fire trucks and planes just out to Sparks just last week, it would have been gigantic. I don't know what the price tag is for that. But to keep the range open just during fire months, when it's fire danger time, will cost us very little money. There's range fees that can be charged that will easily cover the cost. And it'll be much less expensive than having airplanes out there trying to save homes and people and pets and so on, and our beautiful landscape. That's all I have to say for today. Thank you very much for addressing it. It's a piece of cake. It's no money at all. It's all cost-free. So you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for your work.
Thank you, Mr. Prentice. Is there anyone else, Madam Clerk? And please, Mr. Prentice, fill the card out so that we have your information. Thank you, sir.
There's nobody else signed in.
Okay. Seeing no one else wishing to speak, I will close public comment. Item number 4, Chief.
Item 4 is Commissioners' Fire Chief's announcements, request for information, topics for future agendas, and statements relating to items not on the agenda. No discussion among commissioners will take place on this item.
Chief, do you have any such items?
Just one brief announcement. We have Mr. John Palma here from BLM later down the agenda. We may want Mr. Palma to speak a little bit about the recent fires, but BLM has initiated some fire restrictions on its land, so I think that would be timely to hear from Mr. Palma during the Chief's report.
Okay, love to do that. So I'm going to start out. First, I'd like to thank Chief, you and all the firefighters, not just TM, but of course our neighboring agencies for dealing with the Jasper fire. Chief, you and I were in pretty much constant contact. I really appreciate it. We were having conversations about the potential for evacuations. At some point, Chief, what I think I'd like to do is I'd like to have an agenda item about how we may need to evacuate and what that plan might look like. And I know we'll have to bring Aaron Keniston in. And I know that's kind of a robust conversation because we're not just dealing with Spanish Springs, we're not just dealing with the North Valleys, we're not just dealing with, Washoe or Verdi or those other places. I mean, we're, the entire county, we really need to look at how do we institute an evacuation plan. And also, Chief, I'd like you to mention, maybe when we're done talking, something about drone use and the fines for drone use, I know that they're in the range of $20,000. I know that we had an issue with a drone flying, and I know, I mean, I know people want to get out and get their drones out and take these photographs, but I mean, I don't know whether we can work this backwards, Chief. If any of this footage shows up online, I want to go after these people, period, because that's typically what they want to do. They want to post it to their Facebook page or, you know, Instagram or whatever. And so if we see this footage, if we know that it's out there, I want to press charges. We cannot have drones endangering the lives of the folks who are operating, you know, the airplanes and the helicopters for airdrops. So again, I want to extend my debt of gratitude. You guys did a phenomenal job. Sadly, Commissioners Herman, Lucy, and myself were out of town, but Chief, I was impressed with how really you kept everyone apprised, and I want to again thank you for just the back and forth that you and I had. Commissioners, anyone else? Commissioner Herman.
There it goes. Thank you. The gentleman that just spoke a few minutes ago in public speaking, public comment, he brought up a subject that I was going to talk about, and that is, here we have another set of shooters that didn't have any place else to go, so they were doing it right there where they were that started the fire. Now we have potential there at Peavine. If we could get the signs up, we really need more places where people can shoot, safe places, where gravel pits, whatever it is, but they have to know where those places are. There needs to be places that are convenient on the west side as well as the east side. And I'd sure like to have some help on that, because if we had Peavine kind of cleaned up and fire safe and the shooting areas were designated, you know, the people on the west side would have a chance. Now over in Palomino Valley, the shooting range is not open, as he said, very often, and especially not for the public. And so that needs to be fixed. And we just need to provide that, because people have a constitutional right to use their guns and some people that work guarding banks and things like that, they have to practice too. And I've had a lot of people come to me and say, we don't have anywhere to practice, you know, to keep sharp shooters, you know, on the job, you know. And so I know that we can do it. It wouldn't cost much, you know, to clean out a gravel pit or whatever, and just have some safe places for people to shoot, because it's very frustrating when they bought a new gun to go hunting with, and there's nowhere to target practice, you know. And so it just seems that we need to have a place on the west side and a place on the east side that are very, very convenient for people, that they can go there, get it done, go home, and not have to start a fire. Okay? Thank you very much. Any help anybody's got ideas, places that people would donate, companies maybe have old gravel pits that could be used. We just need to do that. So thank you for anything you can do.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Herman. And while I recognize, and I have this as a note also, the issues with the range, I don't think the fire board has any purview over the ranges. That's a Board of County Commissioners issue, and I think we should take it up there. The gentleman previously mentioned Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So that's something that I think that we should take up bring it up and have an agenda item brought back to us on the regular county commission meeting. Commissioners, anybody else? Commissioner Jung.
Thank you. I also am concerned about not only the access to shooting ranges, but what is our responsibility, and therefore what is under our control when it is a red flag warning day, to prohibit all activities that would contribute to a spark, which would then go to a fire. I brought this up last time we met and have not heard back what our what jurisdiction, if any, we have. I saw the state is moving forward on that. I'm also wondering what we did in the legislature, because this is not a new issue. We dealt with this the whole time you've been here, Chief, of summers of erratic weather, erratic winds, and high fire damage. Well, not summers, year-round, really, of fire threats. So I'd like to get that back from you sooner rather than later, not next month. And then when it comes to the shooting ranges, I think that needs to go to the regional parks and open space. And then where's the money? Because the parks and open space have been cut 48% of their budget. They have no budget to run anything. So that is certainly something that we need to look into. And then when we were speaking about the evacuation plan, I think you should work with flood as well, because that's often an issue here when we have very wet years. What if a dam broke? What if those sort of those scenarios for evacuation that would be in any sense of an emergency, work with the emergency management, but also our other threats, natural threats that we deal with in this valley. They already had a evacuation plan. I don't know where it went, and I know that Reno Fire has an evacuation plan for the city residents. I don't know much about it. There's no signs up that say this is your, like they do on the East Coast, hurricane evacuation plans that are easily known, because in an emergency, people are not going to go to their bureau and pull out their evacuation plan. It needs some good signage too, year-round, just so people go, oh yeah, this is a way that I would come out of this neighborhood. So I think if you could work with that regionally, we would, I'm not going to say whatever that colloquialism is, but I think it would be more robust, and it would give us to take a chance to take a leadership role as a regional provider of emergency responders to look at all of our threats, natural or human-made, and how we can have good evacuation plans throughout the valley. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Okay, commissioners, anyone else? I have no one else signed in. All right, seeing none, we will close item number 4. Chief, item number 5, consent.
Item 5 are consent items. I would note on item B that Moira Hauenstein is here in the audience. If there's any particular questions, you could pull that for additional discussion. But nevertheless, I think it's fairly straightforward, but did want to note Moira's attendance.
Okay, commissioners, does anyone wish any information or wish anything to be pulled from consent? I have a motion by Commissioner Burke-Bigler, second by Commissioner Lucy. Madam Clerk, is there any public comment?
There's nobody signed in.
Okay, I will close public comment. Any other discussion on consent, commissioners? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item number 6, Chief.
Item 6 is the International Association of Firefighters Local 2487 report. Mr. Satterfield is here to give you a report on the peer support program.
Mr. Satterfield, welcome.
Good morning. Ian Satterfield, Local 2487, present for the record. So myself and Derek are here today just to kind of give you a little update on where we were at with our peer support team and give you a little kind of overview of what we accomplished. It's been over a month since we lost Tyler. And so with that said, during that whole process, our peer support team, which was young, I mean, it was a month old, was challenged with a lot of challenges. We had a lot of successes, though, also through that process. When it started, we had a liaison from the local there with the family 24/7 at the hospital during the whole period of time. So that, again, I give kudos to our whole local and our peer support team for doing that. It was something that was incredibly beneficial for the family during that time. In addition to that, 731 and their peer support team was there with us hand in hand. They had someone there 24/7, which, looking back on it, and I think Derek would agree, it was really good for us because we had someone there that could help our folks out that were going through a hard time also. They were a little bit set aside from what we had going on. In addition to that, we had our new chaplain, Misty, and she would, I mean, I can't tell you the number of things that she did in her first challenge as the chaplain of TM. But she was incredibly impactful to not only the family, but everyone that was involved. As the process went on, we realized that it was bigger than what we could handle as a local and as a peer support team. We reached out to the IFF. They brought a team in. Initially, it came in with 2 folks. One was Scott Ross, who is LA County's peer supporter. I mean, that's what he does for LA County, has been doing it for 20 years. He came in with another member from the IFF. They did an evaluation of kind of what we had going on. They were pretty surprised at how impactful it was. It wasn't just Truckee Meadows that was affected. You know, Tyler touched a lot of people in a lot of different organizations throughout his career. They went back, kind of let the weekend go, came back on a Monday, and they brought 4 more peer supporters from IFF from all over the country, from all the West Coast, and we developed a plan. So over the 4 days that the peer support team was here, we visited every fire station within Truckee Meadows on every shift. So anybody that was on duty was touched by the peer support team from the IFF. We also reached out to other fire departments, Sparks, Carson Fire, Airport Authority, as well as Reno Fire were also brought in the mix, as well as the families from both sides, as well as dispatch. So we reached out to quite a few individuals. I want to say, actually, we kept pretty decent records. We actually reached out and touched 136 people over the 4 days. So I think that's pretty commendable. And with that, the last thing I wanted to do, what I wanted to say is I want to put a thank you out to 731's peer support team for their help they did. I want to put a thank you out for our department for the support that was given, as well as our members and what they accomplished with our peer support team. And I want to also thank the Airport Authority. They allowed us to use their facility at the airport for essentially a command post. So their chief allowed us to have that, so we were inundated there. So a lot of people from the community came together to help out with this whole process that we went through. And finally, I mean, I think our team learned an immense amount in a shorter period of time. I know that we'll be stronger in the future for it. And so with that, the reason I brought Derek here, I want him to kind of talk about where we're going next. And so I'll let him speak on that.
Good morning, Derek Reed, Truckee Meadows Fire, Local 2487 for the record. This was a huge event. Obviously, nobody anticipated it, and the work that was involved by all was very difficult. We had plans in place, but a lot of it was reactionary. We were adjusting to whatever situation arose, depending on the membership, the issues that were occurring. We had a lot of multi-dimensional things to deal with. The follow-up to this is the most important part. We have, this will change Truckee Meadows Fire forever. This will never be forgotten. And what we need to do is have a strategic behavioral action plan for the district to care for the members that are here, the members that are coming, and also the families that are associated with those members. Our action plan is we need to build a behavioral health wellness program. I will be getting with our chiefs and our HR department, and I have language for that particular program, and it basically integrates to the wellness program that already exists We just have to add that component. What that looks like is, a bullet pointed for you, is a peer support program. We've done that, and we're improving on that. Department chaplains, we have one. We have 2 in training as we speak that still need to be credentialed. A department contracted behavioral health specialist or a clinician that can oversee things that are of that nature. That is also built into the peer support program. We want to restructure EAP, make sure that it works or it works better. And obviously the risk management workers' compensation division, which is going to be, a lot of HR and co-op. Our peer support program. So far, we're vetting clinicians, and we're going to continue to do so, assisting in the district and HR with building that behavioral health program. Continuing education for the peer support team, which is essential. And then the rollout of our Truckee Meadows mobile application that will be in the Apple Store soon that has resources and tips, and that will be for anybody that accesses that. And we've already built it. We're just going through the licensing process. That should be out any day. The continuation of awareness that we brought through the Facebook page for Truckee Meadows fire peer support. We have amazing followership and interaction. We definitely have a lot of engagement on that particular site. So that's also continuing. My vision for the future is to regionalize a peer support team. That doesn't mean that Truckee Meadows peer support team goes away. Right now, as far as the fire service goes, there's only really 2 entities, 2 agencies that have peer support teams, and that's Reno and us. There are smaller departments in the outreach that don't have enough membership to build a team. What we want to do is be the leader in building that regional team. Everybody keeps their own identity as peer support teams specific to their department, but there'll be another level that everybody has access to everybody's resources. Continuing education, and this is not just for the peer support team, but for the department in itself. So in legislation AB 429 passed, there is an element in there that says PTSD training shall be administered by agencies. We're already doing that. It's already, in the queue. So as a response and continuing education for the department, we already have classes scheduled. July 24th and 6th, we have a clinician, Stephen Nichols, coming in to teach suicide awareness and resiliency in the fire service. And I've already seen his lecture, and it's amazing. And that was before the Tyler incident. August 3rd, we have in development a firefighter wives resilience lecture being taught by one of our vetted clinicians, Erin Chapel. There's a crisis response training that is not hosted by TM in August. October, we're bringing in Josh Wenner and Philip Folsom for emotional resilience training. And Ben Vernon was scheduled to speak. He's a keynote speaker from San Diego that was stabbed on duty. They came down with PTSD, suicide, and he was here to speak for us, and he arrived the day after the Tyler incident occurred. And I'd like to say thank you to him all the way in San Diego for staying here. We had to cancel his lecture, but he stayed here and was a peer supporter for our members. And then there's a wellness on the front line conference in San Diego in November. With the budget that we were gracefully given by the district, we'd like to send some people to go to that. It's one of the largest conferences for peer support on the West Coast. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So Commissioners, I can't see anyone wishing to speak. Go ahead. I can't see it, Commissioner Jung. It's not working properly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yep, thank you so much for what you're doing. I think it is critical for this entire valley, and I'm glad to hear that you're regionalizing it. I would strongly recommend that you not only reach out to fire, but law enforcement. And I was glad to hear in your presentation, Mr. President, that you're reaching out to dispatch as well. I think sometimes they have the really hardest time because they are on the phone providing comfort and care as much as they can and really no resolution. So I would strongly encourage that, but I appreciate all that you've done and you're emerging here in the Valley as a real leader of this and a West Coast leader. I can't tell you enough how deeply sorry I am for the loss of your brother. And I know that it did, I've heard from a lot of people and how much it's reverberated throughout the whole, not just Washoe County either, Story County I've heard from, and Douglas and Lyon. So my deepest sympathy for that, and I look forward to what you're learning. Come teach us after you go to have these trainings brought here, and when you go to San Diego, I would love a presentation on our own resiliency here, because I know as a chair, especially, we get a lot of phone calls about a lot of stuff that we have absolutely, first of all, no subject matter expertise, and second of all, can't really, we don't know how to deploy anybody to do anything when it comes to these emergency management. We have to rely on our chiefs and our sheriff and our emergency response team. So in as much as you can build in some resiliency for us as well, we would appreciate that. I'm sure I can speak for everybody knowing from my own experience, and not even just as chair. I mean, as a board of fire commissioners, it's tough when we have big threats or we are warned of nuclear stuff going through our town that we can't tell anybody. I mean, there is a lot of stress on this end as well, and not at any conference, nor at a concert, not at any conference that I've been to has they ever talked about resiliency and the PTSD that local leaders experience, elected officials in those. So hands off to you. Thanks for doing this and making yourself a subject matter expert. And I would, and I know you don't need encouragement, but I would like to help you fund as a board to make sure that we're also doing preventive and identifying people that we see that might be slip, tripping, and falling on their own emotional reaction. And as you well know with the research you've done now, nobody knows what will trigger them into that downward spiral that, unfortunately, the ultimate unaddressed issue would be self-harm. So,
Thank you.
good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner John. Commissioners, again, I can't see anyone wishing to speak. Is there anyone else? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Chief, item number 7.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 7 is a fire chief's report and informational briefing on operational matters and activities for the month of June and July 2019. And to start, Gerlach Fire update. As of July 1st, we've taken direct management of Gerlach Fire over from the county. I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, I also have some items that were presented for distribution and to be placed on the record. There is a copy in the back.
Okay, thank you.
So continuing, we are not taking over the financial responsibility other than we're managing that for the county's budget for Gerlach. But our strategy is just simply to get through Burning Man in the next couple of months. We need to have some intermittents hired. 50% or so of Gerlach's calls happen the week before and the week after Burning Man. So that is our main focus for right now. Number 2 is a recent large incident response summary. I'd like to invite Alex Kukulis to come up. But a couple of noteworthy statistics very quickly. Between July 4th and the 48-hour period after that, we responded to 28 fires in 48 hours, which is an extraordinary amount for us. I'd like to say thank you to our regional partners, the City of Reno, the City of Sparks, BLM, Forest Service, and all of our mutual aid partners, Carson City, who helped us manage that extraordinary call load. And also introduce to you John Palma, who's, I don't know your exact title, John, but I will call you Fire Chief for BLM. That probably summarizes your responsibility the best as any word. So I think you'll be amazed at what this district did in the last 15 days.
Chief, Mr. Palmer, welcome.
Good morning. For the record, Alex Kukulis, Interim Deputy Chief, Truckee Meadows Fire. Pleasure to be here this morning. Thank you for the opportunity. Just wanted to kind of quickly spend a few minutes going over some of the major incidents, but particularly the Jasper fire that's still ongoing, hopefully wrapping up later today. But it is worthy to mention, this wasn't our only large incident in the last couple of weeks. We had the Black Mountain 2 fire, which I believe was 729 acres out in the Wadsworth but Pyramid Lake tribal areas, as well as we had a conflagration of 4 or 5 homes that burned in that same area a few days before that. structure fire in Lemon Valley, multiple extrication accidents. So it's just been a very busy time of year for us. And these large incidents obviously involve dozens of responders and equipment from our department as well as others. So can we bring the presentation up? Sorry, figure out this clicker here. Do I just need to tell you next? Okay. So in regard to the Jasper fire, this broke out late Saturday, just before 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon. That's just sort of an overview of the area. So we're talking about Chimney Road was the area of origin, which is a BLM area, but a popular area for shooting, which we'll elaborate on a little bit here too. And we have a lot of other people occupying that area as well. So north end of Sun Valley, and then the fire burned towards the communities of Spanish Springs and Dolores area in particular, near Spanish Springs High School as well. So those were the areas primarily impacted. Next. As these statistics are as of this morning, I spoke with Scott Stevenson, who's the incident commander on the Sierra Front Team 1. Scott also happens to be one of our captains, so he plays that role. When we have these large incidents, the reason for using the team like that is that when we have these large incidents and they're ongoing for several days, there's tremendous logistics needs and managing all those personnel that are assigned to these incidents. And so by bringing in a team, it frees up our resources to go back to be available for initial attack for additional incidents that come in. So the total acreage burn was 1,165 acres. It's 80% contained as of late last night, and they're hoping for full containment, as mentioned here, at 1,800 hours tonight, at which point they'll pretty much downsize the organization and hand it back to our organizations tomorrow. We had approximately 300 personnel in the initial phases of the incident, down to about 130 as of this morning. We did have 3 structures lost. That was 2 residences and 1 outbuilding, all on one property that's a private parcel just on the north end of Sun Valley there. I have some additional photos and comments on that. And then 2 persons were arrested for gross negligence related to starting the fire. The Sheriff's Office and BLM law enforcement are both currently working on that investigation. And we did apply for an FMAG declaration. If you're not familiar with that, it's a Fire Management Assistance Grant through the federal government. Picks up a large majority of the costs. Our organization is also part of the WFPP, so the state then absorbs the remainder of those costs. But having that declaration certainly helps the state in offsetting some of these costs. And the ticker as of last night was at 740,000, so that'll grow a little bit too with today's operations. Next. So this is the perimeter map of the actual area burned, and the green overlay there is BLM and combined BIA areas. So you can see we call the heel of the fire would be that far lower left corner of the area of origin, and it quickly burned into that private parcel that's not green in the middle of that little island. That's the ranch where we did lose those structures, and then proceeded kind of in a east-northeast direction. The crews, as everyone's mentioned, just did a tremendous job. I mean, although there were some losses, it could have certainly been much worse. Most of that north and east side was assisted through air operations with some heavy tankers, a whole arsenal of air support, as well as some dozer line and lots of boots on the ground. So they did a great job of stopping that where they did before it hit those homes in the Dolores area and could get in the backyards of those homes. So, you know, although we lost several homes, we can go ahead to the next slide. We like to also emphasize how many were saved. So yes, we lost 3 buildings, but when we applied for that FMAG declaration, we considered there was probably about 500 homes directly threatened to some businesses and schools scattered in there, probably over 1,000 people that occupy those. So the fact that we only lost those buildings, I think is a testament to everyone's good work. And you can see this picture here is taken of that ranch where we did lose the homes. You can see it's pretty much surrounded by black, so the fire consumed most of the areas all the way around it. And the area of origin is just over that little hill in the background there. So from the time it started and burned very rapidly with the red flag conditions we had in the winds and everything, it was upon these buildings within minutes. So we don't have a lot of reaction time, and that's why sometimes we sustain losses in those areas that are most proximate to the area of origin. And then as we were able to ramp up and put the resources in place, we were able to protect the others there. So next. This is, again, just some more pictures of that ranch, and we've had conversations with the property owner. He's very grateful that primary residence in the lower left is where they occupy, and that was saved. There's a lot of property. It's several acres of property that's spread out over it. We did, lose a double-wide trailer and a single-wide there and an outbuilding, but a lot of the other property was saved. There's some, you can see heavy, I know it's small pictures, but very heavy fuels and lumber, timber that was also piled up on the property. Next. Just an aerial view. The team put this together for us just to kind of give you a little better view of how spread out that property is. So those flagged comments there are the buildings that were lost with that primary residence that was saved kind of in the lower area there. Next. So this is where we'll probably involve some conversations with Chief Palma here. But the Chimney Road area is an area of concern for us that we've been discussing for some time now, before this fire. We've actually had 3 or 4 fires just in the past few weeks in this area. I spoke with one gentleman who started one that was kept small, less than half an acre, burning his trash. While they were occupying that area, there was another shooting related fire prior to that. So we estimate that there's probably in excess of 50 vehicles in that area, some occupied as encampments, some are abandoned. So we've had conversations about some of the things we can do. We're limited in some regards, but we've talked about trying to identify where we have occupied RVs and vehicles and encampments, and noting those on maps, and then trying to tag some of the abandoned vehicles, whether that's with a red mark for helicopters to be able to identify overhead or what. Because if we do have another fire in the area, our priority is going to be evacuating, protecting the people that are occupying those. And so by being able to discern the difference there, we can focus our efforts there rather than on abandoned vehicles. So it is, again, all BLM areas, and I'll let Chief Palma speak to that as I wrap this up. Just a couple more slides. Go ahead to the next one. This is the area of origin. So I know there's been a conversation this morning about shooting areas. You can see in the forefront all the rounds and casings on the ground. Where this particular fire started is in the background there. And if you can tell in the photo, very rocky area. And I know the photo's not the best, but there's also cheatgrass strewn throughout there, even in the areas that don't have a lot of vegetation and rocks. The cheatgrass is everywhere, and we somewhat lightheartedly call it grassoline, but it does burn like gasoline, and the lightest little spark will get that stuff going, and it pops and crackles like a sparkler on the 4th of July. So I guess we really included this just for anyone out there that's listening or watching this stuff. If there's any of that stuff, any vegetation whatsoever present, any rocks, it will spark, it will start a fire, and given the right conditions, it'll go big like this. So we're just really trying to head this off the next one. So, and then we just included the BLM fire restrictions. Chief Palma can again speak to these, but these were enacted a couple weeks ago based on conditions that have gotten worse in ways. So highlight the number 7 there. Limiting steel core ammunition, use of those when shooting, as well as not using fires and charcoal and those other things in those areas. But again, we do have people in that particular area in camp. There's other areas within the county that are also of concern. But yeah, we are working together collaboratively and see what we can do to prevent these and then respond accordingly when we do have the next one. So I'll turn it over to Chief Palma for any questions or anything you want to add.
All right. Real quick, I'll just speak to the fire restrictions. I think.
Chief, please identify yourself.
Oh, yes. Sorry. My name's Jonathan Palma. I'm the acting fire management officer for Carson City District BLM. And then
Yeah, please continue.
I'll continue with the fire restrictions. So a question I seem to get a lot is when and why do we go into fire restrictions? And the answer to that is there's a lot of calculations, that are based on science that we go into. And one of the things that we look at is we have what's called ERC, which stands for Energy Release Component. That's just a calculation from fuels, weather, all that stuff that goes into that. And when we hit about 80 for a few days in a row, we know we're kind of in that peak summer time. And when you get to 80, that's when we kind of start to see fires get bigger. So we kind of hit that last week where we hit those days in a row. And then some other stuff that we look at that goes into it is we start looking at our fuel moistures, our live fuel moistures in our sagebrush here. And then, there's a certain number, and we hit that last week also, which is about 120, or like around there, 125, where we start to see larger fire growth. And so last week we decided to go into fire restrictions because everything's pointing that we are going to start seeing large fires. And we went in on Saturday, and of course Saturday we had Jasper, and we also had that Black Mountain too. So that is the reason why we go into restrictions. Now, we do restrict certain things. As Commissioner Herman said earlier, a lot of people go out and shoot. We do not want to take away anybody's right to shoot, but we do restrict kind of what they can shoot in hopes that we will prevent fires from starting from the things that we know most of the time start fires. And so you guys have this, you guys can read it if you want to, or if you want me to elaborate on anything, let me know. But those are kind of the things that we see start fires the most in the summertime, and so that is why we restrict those things. And then,
So before you get off this, Chief, let me ask you a question.
go ahead.
How do you disseminate this information? How do people know that there's actually a restriction and that these activities are prohibited?
Okay, so there's a few things we do. One is we do a press release with it that goes out, and I would like to say there's also social media stuff that goes out. Now, Truckee Meadows, as one of our cooperators, has done a great job at helping us get information out, and I see their social media posts all the time, and I know that they posted on this as well. Another way is we do go out, we have a prevention program, and we have people that go out and post signs at some of our more, where we see public entrance onto public lands mostly. And so you'll see a lot of signs, they're red and yellow, just with pictures of, no fireworks, no campfires, it just kind of a pictogram kind of deal. And then right now, actually, we're looking at maybe more ways to educate on shooting. Because those signs, they say that there's restrictions, but unless you go look at the restrictions like this that we've put out, you wouldn't know exactly what type of ammo or anything like that. I mean, it does say what type of ammo, but when you're going out, if you're somebody going out and shooting, is there a way for them to be more educated at the entrance to these public lands? Does that answer your question?
More or less. I guess the question is were these two gentlemen using either tracer or steel core ammunition or just standard ammunition? Do we know?
I do not know the answer to that. Do you?
No, and I know that's still an active investigation with the Washington County detectives working with law enforcement, so I wouldn't want to get into the details of that. But they were charged regardless of gross negligence because of causing the fire and the damage that ensued.
All right.
And I think just because of the opportunities here, if you can also add to what law enforcement personnel BLM has for a very vast area, I think that just puts perspective on that really we need the public's help in following these because the enforcement side is just incredibly difficult. But.
Yeah, and so he had put that picture up there of all the abandoned vehicles. And so this is a known spot that, we have issues with public lands. And, I know it's a focal point for our law enforcement, but one thing to keep in mind, we don't have a very vast, a big law enforcement group. In fact, right now, due to vacancies and stuff, we have one ranger for, 5 million acres. So you can and even when we are fully staffed, I think it's one ranger per million acres. So you can understand where, Chimney Road is a hard place to be, but we also have multiple spots like that, and you're aware of where they also have to patrol and look for things like that. Every time they go out there, they're very busy with all kinds of issues that happen in that area.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, yes. Lucy, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gentlemen, thank you so much for the presentation and the conversation today. I think it's a huge challenge that we have, the enforcement, just the enforcement alone. Trying to push a lot of those, cover those areas is tremendous. The one thing I had for you, Chief, are we going out to the retailers and placing maybe placards with the retailers in regards to shooting data? I mean, i.e., Shields, Cabela's, Sportsman's Warehouse, any of the small gun shops here locally that do sell a lot of the ammo. I mean, now I understand people have ammo at home. I have a ton of it at home that, is proper for shooting and not. But the point is that there's places that we should be probably targeting these people right when they're getting into town. If they're going out to buy cheap ammo or they're buying steel core or whatever. And understandably, some people reload at home and you can't control that either. But are we trying to get to the retailers and do some outreach with the retailers?
That's something I did not say, but every year in the May is Wildfire Awareness Month. And so we usually, as we at BLM, we put together a team that goes around the state, and one stop was Reno, Carson, this whole area here. And we actually have made targets that people can get at the stores, Shields, Cabela's, all those Sportsman's. And on those targets are those kind of, hey, make sure there's a clean backdrop, watch your ammunition, what you're shooting. And so we are making efforts to make sure that is available for people when they go to buy ammo at stores such as those you mentioned.
Great, thank you. And Chair, if you wouldn't.
Oh, no, go ahead, please.
As we're talking about the Jasper fire and BLM, and I know we're talking about shooting as the cause of this, but the other thing I want to bring to the front of everybody's mind is that along with our affordable housing issues and different things like this and the homeless issues, I know in Story County, right next door, just down the East Turkey River Canyon, up the canyon and multiple of those draws, there are now quite a few encampments for individuals that are homeless. And it's happening, I know, in North Valleys as well, also off of Peavine. We have it off of top of Sun Valley back in there. And people get off the road, and it's a safe place for them to so-called live. They can move their stuff, they can be out there, and they're living out there, and they're using, I mean, you look at your list, they're smoking out there, they're cooking out there, they've got gas out there.
Campfires.
They are actually living on the land, on BLM land, and so I know we're concerned with target shooting, but we need to be concerned about when we're talking about one ranger per 5 million acres.
That is 1,562 square miles.
And we don't have that kind of enforcement for that type of, and so today Jasper was caused by target shooting, but what happens when that is just flat negligence? And so I think that's another thing we need to discuss, and how we can go and help do some of this enforcement, some of this encampments, dealing with some of these issues outside of just the fire issue, because as we pointed out, the cost is tremendous. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Jung.
I do have a question about the BLM land. When you say there are encampments out there, is that permitted? What is the length of stay? What's the charge or fee? What is the camping regulation?
So you can, I can't remember the exact term. I mainly deal with fire, but you can camp on BLM land for 14 days.
Okay.
After 14 days, you were supposed to vacate and
Move to another place, or, yeah, so, okay. So they are legally and by all their rights as taxpayers who also own the land there, able to camp there.
Yes.
And the issue is that we just don't have we don't have a lot of sheriffs per deputies per all of our acreage either. It's not just you that are constrained by personnel, it's us too. So they have every right to be there, and perhaps, I don't know how we would do this in terms of the education of what they can and can't do during these red flag warning days, and how we would get that exactly to them. But I think that is a good point in educating them, that, you could inadvertently start the whole wildland on fire. And I'm certain that is not their intent, nor the shooter's intent in this last scary situation. The picture of the shooting areas and all the casings, is that BLM land or is that Washoe County land?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so in this picture, that is BLM land, but actually just right to the right of this picture would be private.
Okay. And what's the rules for these lovely shooters with these casings? Are they supposed to be picking this up, or is this also just their garbage can? The earth is the garbage can for shooters?
They definitely should be picking it up.
Okay. So I think we need more enforcement all the way around in as much as you can, and enforcing even this tragedy that is here, that is all of our public lands. And giving them fines for their sloppy, negligent behavior just in this. I know we're two different governments. I don't know what control, if any, we have over that, or to help you
believe that
in
comes under
enforcing
littering.
this. But I would like Chief, if you could get back to us, since we're not meeting next month, sometime, maybe by the close of business of this week, to let us know what action plans we have for not only the detritus that these people, irresponsible shooters, are leaving, but how we are going to help people live on the land for their 14 days and then until they move, to educate them so that they're not inadvertently starting a fire along with these other red flag warning day illegitimate behavior. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask if the board would like a tour of the area. We'd be happy to take whatever board members that would like to survey this by
I'd certainly like to see
ground.
that, yeah.
And finally, I would just mention the continuity of fuels from the point of origin into the subdivisions that you see the bottom of the perimeter map in this graphic is the north of Sun Valley, and also towards the right of the picture to Spanish Springs High School where the command post was. There was a continuity of fuels there that could have easily carried that fire into subdivisions, which was our greatest fear on that. And I can't praise the actions of the crews high enough to keep the fire where it was.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, real quickly, I have something legal. If you do take up the chief's invitation to do some kind of a tour of the area, if you assemble in a quorum out there, you will probably need to post an agenda and follow all those restrictions. That would not apply if it was fewer than a quorum.
Understood. Thank you. Commissioner Burke-Bigler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things that I think is interesting about that field of shooting is, how do we know who did it? I mean, unless we have somebody who's there all the time, where people are going to walk away and not clean up after themselves. So are we, in your map that you're giving out to the shooting, places who sell bullets, does it indicate on there, please clean up after yourself? Does it say something like that? I mean, people are going to do what people are going to do, so they're probably not going to clean up after themselves, even if they're told to do it. But, in some cases, some people will, but some won't. But I don't know how we police something like that unless we have more people to do the policing, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. So I was just curious.
So I don't have that target memorized, what's all on there. But I do remember, it's been, 3 years ago, and we've carried on some of this too, is we had that campaign, and maybe some of you remember, but the Trigger Trash campaign. We had ads. We went out and did a lot of public outreach. We had a lot of volunteer groups come in to clean areas like this on public land.
Yeah,
And
there's a
so,
lot of that going on, so,
yeah, so that was our campaign slogan, was the Trigger Trash part.
yeah. And we might be, Chief, we might be well-served to figure out some way to clean, to get a team of citizens who are interested in, cleaning up the environment, to go to specific sites like this that we know are problems. I don't know how we're gonna, you can't regulate this stuff. People are gonna do what people are gonna do, so I just think we might be better served than trying to put in regulations, maybe getting citizens who are interested in helping clean our community, so that might be something we wanna work on.
Pick up your brass.
Didn't
Yeah.
we learn that in kindergarten?
And I think also, Chief, and without deliberating on this, there may be some salvage value for that brass as well.
No,
not-
it's shotgun chasing.
Well, but the base
shell
of a shotgun
casings.
shell is still a piece of brass, I think, so anyways. Okay, Commissioners, we need to move on. We still have a fairly robust agenda. Thank you so much. I know that this is important, and I do want to talk more about it, but we've got to keep moving. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item A3, I just wanted to announce Maureen O'Brien's retirement. She has been a stalwart employee of the district for the last 7 years, and we will miss her. We wish her a happy retirement. If you'd like to stop by the office on Friday from about 10 to noon and say goodbye, we're going to throw a little bit of a party for her.
Okay.
Item 4, Commissioner Burke-Bigler had asked the status of deputy chief positions. Obviously, on the next agenda, you're going to consider the appointment of Alex Kakulis as the deputy chief, but we still are missing a position for fire marshal or deputy chief of fire prevention, which the board may recall in our budget presentation that we had to freeze those positions for 6 months for budgetary reasons. There may be a way that we can adjust some things, but our timing for deputy chief of fire prevention is later in the year. On 5, a discussion of proposed open burning regulations with Washoe County Health District and TM. We held a series of meetings at our fire stations, took public input on the new proposed burning regulations. Our contemplation is that open burning would be allowed on 2 acres without a permit and would require a permit in less than 2 acres. We're looking at trying to get this rolled out in November, December. So progress is being made on that. And then finally, 7B, if there are any questions regarding our statistics, I'd be glad to answer those.
Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Jung?
Yep, Chief, I have a question about definitions. Can you define the difference between auto aid and enhanced aid?
Yes, automatic aid is a predefined schedule of when we respond to another agency's call or they respond to our call automatically without any manual ask. Enhanced auto aid is more or less the same thing, but it's an agreement that we've made with the city of Sparks for a boundary drop. So it's a little bit different in that it's just simply a protocol where enhanced auto aid, even if we respond into Sparks and Sparks into us, we write the report as though it was our call. So we actually own those calls with respect to the documentation. So there are subtle differences, but there are not major differences between auto aid and enhanced auto aid.
Is that the only fire district that you have enhanced auto aid with?
It is.
Is there a reason for that? I mean, are there other areas you're looking for enhanced auto aid? Either they pick up and do the report, or we pick up and do the report because it makes more management sense, is what I'm assuming? Or it's a best practice?
That's the only place. We have been working on this with Sparks for about 2 years.
Okay.
We do have lots of automatic aid protocols with the city of Reno. We're now launching new automatic aid protocols with Carson City. So it's evolving, but to answer your question directly, enhanced automatic aid only exists with the city of Sparks.
So do you plan on doing more of that? I mean, how does that get triggered? What's the thought process that we write the reports, we own it, versus they do? I mean, what is the philosophy behind that? I don't understand that.
Well, it's simply because we're only on calls where the closest unit may be us to Sparks and Sparks to us, and they only need a single resource. It doesn't make much sense for Sparks to write an incident report in TM when they didn't go. So if we're only sending one fire truck to a call, we're just simply writing the documentation for that. Automatic aid is more of a situation where we're sending multiple units, say, to a fire. So we may have 2 engines from Reno, 2 engines from TM,
Right.
regardless
So there's
of-
too many moving parts or logistics
Yeah.
that you need to own each of it. But are there other areas that you think that would be beneficial for us or our regional partners?
Absolutely, and I've talked to the Reno Fire Chief to see if we could make some progress on that. He has asked that he get through his union negotiations first, and we'll have additional conversations.
And what about Carson or Story? Would those be, I'm not telling you to do it because I don't know, but would they also qualify, or is that not a trigger? Is it more of a density issue?
It's probably more logical from a geographical
Okay,
layout.
it's a geographical
That we
issue.
don't do enhanced aid with Carson City, although there are some areas where we're just exactly the same response time, say for Duck Hill.
Right,
There's only about a 30-second difference between when they would get there and we would get there.
okay.
So,
So it's geography that drives it?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Commissioners, anyone else? Okay. We are officially really behind. Chief, item number 8.
Item 8, and I'm going to summarize these in the interest of time. This is the board's consideration of appointing and contracting with Deputy Chief Alex Kukulis for the position for a period of 2 years at the specified salary. And Alex has been with the district for 13 years. He's consummately qualified to run the district, and in fact, he was the incident commander on the Jasper fire. I've seen Alex work, and he does extraordinary work, so it's staff's recommendation that the board approve his contract.
Okay, Commissioners. I have a motion by Commissioner Jung, second by Commissioner Lucy. Madam Clerk, is there anyone in public comment wishing to speak?
No, sir, there's nobody signed in.
Okay, we will close public comment. Motion by Jung, second by Lucy. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and we have no ability to vote, Madam Clerk.
I'm sorry, we had some technical difficulties getting the meeting loaded,
Okay.
so we've recorded for
Okay.
the record.
Okay, good, we're old school. Item number 9, Chief.
Item 9 is a recommendation that the Board of Fire Commissioners ratify fiscal year 1920 reimbursements from the Washoe County, Nevada Other Post-Employment Benefits OPEB Trust Fund. If you'd like a presentation on this, Ms. Cindy Vance is here to answer any questions. Otherwise, this is a fairly routine thing that happens every year.
Understood. Commissioners? Move to approve. I have a motion by Commissioner Jung, second by Commissioner Burke-Bigler. Madam Clerk, is there anyone in the public wishing to speak?
Yes, there is. Ms. Kathy Brandhorst.
Ms. Brandhorst, we are speaking on item number 9, which is other post-employment benefits and the trust fund.
Okay. My name is Kathy Brandhorst, and I am the United States President. Board of Fire Commissioners ratify fiscal year 19 and 20. The trust fund to Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District for the cost of retiree health insurance premiums in the amount of $216,388. Well, I don't believe that's going to go to any retirement. I don't believe that they are retiring, because most of us are all in our 30s and 40s. And 216,388 is lawsuits against the fire department. Oh my God. This trust was established to provide a funding source for current and future retiree health costs. Well, we're all in perfect health, I hope. We don't really need health insurance, but we do have it. We have to pay our premiums for insurance, and that cost sometimes rises because we are in the hospital. But these are accidents, I hope, and I'm hoping that they're not set people on fire. Oh. Because there's been a lot of complaints that these grass fires are always set on fire. Houses are set on fire. Because you might have a grudge against somebody and set them on fire anyway, because that grudge is going to grow and grow and grow no matter what. Oh my God. So I just wanted to let you know, I still say the $216,388 is lawsuits against the fire department. And again, are we hiring for the fire department, or are they just volunteer workers, or are they really hired? Do they get the payroll checks? This has been an issue. Are they hired, period? Oh.
This has to do with retiree health.
Yes, yes, and the payroll checks too should be involved.
There are no payroll checks, Ms. Brandhorst. This is retiree health.
You know, just because you put us on disability checks and retirement checks and other small checks, I don't know what happens to those payroll checks, but I think we should really look into that
Thank you, Ms.
too.
Brandhorst. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
There's nobody else signed in.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Jung, second by Commissioner Burke-Bigler. Is there any other discussion, Commissioners? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Chief, item number 10.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a recommendation to approve the purchase of one former demonstrator ambulance for enhanced surge capacity and medical standby. And we have one ambulance based in Bowers. We'd like to add another standby ambulance to the north, probably Sun Valley. Had some conversations with Dean Dow about what we'd like to do. I believe REMSA is supportive. Nevertheless, there are occasions when REMSA gets extraordinarily busy, as do we. And so that ambulance would serve to be able to respond when REMSA is out of ambulances.
So Chief, before we open this completely, I just want to, I have one question. I have no issue with purchasing an ambulance, but my question is if we cover for REMSA, do we get reimbursed? Because if a constituent calls REMSA and they have insurance that pays for that ambulance ride, when we intercede, we're not REMSA, and so are we being reimbursed either by REMSA, or is there some mechanism that we get reimbursed when we cover for REMSA? Or if we're outside of REMSA's service territory and we are transporting, is there a mechanism for us to recover those costs via insurance?
So for the record, again, Alex Kukulis, short answer to your question is we currently do not, and then we have identified that that's an opportunity at some revenue, although it be in our current history, a very small number of transports that we've done in the Washoe Valley area. It is something that we've talked about extensively with Division Chief Joe Cammon, so we are pursuing it. It's a bit of a process to get all the approvals when you're talking about Medicare, Medicaid, and private pay, all that stuff that goes into it. So we are pursuing that as well as with GERLAC as a revenue opportunity there. So when we have that, but until we have that in place, we can't direct bill because we provided the service, and in lieu of REMSA can't bill because for our services.
Okay, so Chief, my second question would be then is REMSA participating in this $137,659 purchase because we are essentially assisting them?
They are not participating, no.
I see. Okay. Commissioners, anyone else?
Mr. Chair, move approval.
Okay. I have a motion by Commissioner Burke-Bigler, second by Commissioner Lucy. Madam Clerk, is there any public comment?
There's nobody signed in.
Okay, we will close public comment, bring it back to the board. Motion by Burke-Bigler, second by Lucy. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries 3-2. Hartung opposed, Jung opposed. Okay. Chief.
Mr. Chairman, in the interest of time, items 11 and 12 are not critical, and staff would ask that we defer those until the next meeting. But we do need items 13 and 14.
Okay. Okay, so we'll just table those items for now. Item 13, Chief.
Item 13 is a presentation on district and union proposals. Patricia Hurley is here to summarize where we're at with current proposals. And Madam Clerk, have those been distributed?
They will be distributed right now.
Welcome, Ms. Hurley.
Good morning. Patricia Hurley for the record, Human Resources. What you have before you is, well, there has been some changes and some movement. So what they're now passing out has been those changes in movement. Between the moment that those were posted, we had 2 meetings, one on Thursday and one yesterday with Union. I'm happy to say that the parties have been working together and have made progress on both sides. Some of the areas in which we have made progress have been COLAs, some current incentive for the supervisory to match those of the non-supervisory. We also looked at retirement health. Some stuff with the HRA has been approved as well. Those things that are still in discussion include education incentive, sick time payout, introducing a cap possibly, and then some specialty pays as well. There's also an item for non-supervisory that's important to them as well, which is minimum constant staffing, so we are talking about that as well. We do have a meeting set up for Monday for all day to continue with negotiations, but that's where we stand at this moment.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 14 is possible closed session. Staff does request that the board convene into closed session.
Okay, that will be after the county commission meeting, so we will go into recess, correct, Mr. Edwards?
That's correct. Whoever makes the motion on this, I think you can say move to go into closed session pursuant to the language in item 14 of the agenda. That lays out the whole procedure, which is that that will occur after item 16, public comment. There will be a further public comment session at the close of the closed session in the upstairs caucus room, which will occur later today.
Okay, and then we'll just go into recess instead of adjournment. Commissioners, I'll accept a motion, please.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Burke-Bigler, second by Commissioner Lucy. Madam Clerk, is there any public comment?
No, sir, there's not.
It is an action item, isn't it? Yeah, it is an action item.
It is,
Okay.
you're correct.
Okay, I will close public comment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Chief, item 15.
Item 15 is Commissioners' Fire Chief's announcements, requests for information, topics for future agendas, and statements relating to items not on the agenda. No discussion among commissioners will take place on this item.
Commissioners, Chief, do you have anything else?
No, sir.
Commissioners?
No.
Okay, Chief, the only other thing that I wanted to mention, and I had made a note of this, when we start talking about the information for disaster planning and evacuation, I'm wondering how we'll get that information out. In the event that there's a loss of power or something of that nature, it'd be nice to know that. And then also, what I'd also like to talk about is, do we have a registry for homebound residents, and perhaps maybe even through Meals on Wheels or something of that nature, that we can get to those people? Not social media. And not social media, exactly. So that's just something that, and maybe what we need to do is start dealing with a registry with respect to homebound. And that, that's a wide variety. It can be senior citizens or anyone who has an impairment. Okay, anything else, commissioners? Okay, Madam Clerk, item number 16.
We
Public
have
comment?
Mr. Sam Dene, followed by Ms. Kathy Brandhorst.
Mr. Dene.
Sam Dene, the guard angel against media wacko freaks and government bungling. I'm an Air Force Academy graduate. I spent many years flying fighters and bombers defending our nation. And after my airline, the greatest airline in history, Pan American World Airways, was blown out of business over Lockerbie and then thrown under the bus by our own government, I started coming to these government meetings in 1993, and I have been to virtually every government meeting since 1993. As I said, I'm an Air Force Academy graduate. I'm responsible, and I'm not challenging anybody, but come up here and tell me that I'm wrong. I'm responsible. Sam, DNA, Danae, me, I'm responsible for 92% of the good things about Reno. And you can go through historically the things I've told them to do or not to do in city council and the airport and the media wacko freaks. And if it's not 92%, come up and tell me. As a matter of fact, I myself say it's no longer 92% because some of the things that I have propagated and ordered and demanded have turned out to be not so good, to put it politely. I was responsible, a driving force that brought us this beloved gigafactory that has been nothing but benefits to the people on the other side of the hill and disaster to Reno relative to gridlock, road rage, hatred, and the change of the ambience of our community. That's the gigafactory. And then we've got Burning Man. I was the person who saved Burning Man when they the people before them wanted to shut it down in 2003. I said, no, there's a lot of good reasons for Burning Man. Well, Burning Man, I've changed my mind on that. Burning Man has outlived its usefulness. It's more problems than it benefits the community. So if there's a way to get rid of it, whether it's through the federal authorities or anybody else, I support that. There's this other thing called the Wild Creek Golf Course School boondoggle, where they want to move Hug High School over to a beautiful golf course that's inhabited by 500 elderly families in their beautiful homes. They want, and the school board especially, which is in total dysfunction and turmoil, they want to destroy that golf course area. 3 years of jackhammering and then the rest of their lives of these poor senior citizens. The Elderly Abuse Committee ought to be coming to this podium every day and saying, stop that. Spending $200 million to build a $50 million school is ridiculous. Where are your brains? Does anybody disagree with me? I love all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Dene.
Ms. Kathy Brandhorst.
Ms. Brandhorst. Welcome.
Thank you. Kathy Brandhorst, and I am the United States President. Training, we haven't been discussing training lately, and training has been a very crucial thing in, especially for fire, and especially if they're just coming into the area for a fire. Also, I just wanted to tell you, you specified here that you're charging the salary only $1,000 per year for employees with a bachelor's degree in fire science. But you also mentioned training. It doesn't sound like it's a lot of money to be trained for that amount of money. I just wanted to bring that up, and also I just wanted to say too that most people who are in firefighting or even in fire distributions, for houses who are, well, I'll give you an example. There was smoke coming up out of into the sky. And we were wondering if that's a cloud or if it's a smoke. It became a smoke coming into the area. But where's the fire trucks? What happened to the REMSs? What happened to the police? That place was burned almost down to the ground. Oh my. Before anybody responded or turned it in. This has been a very crucial thing for a lot of people, in this area. There's been so many complaints because they're not responding. They're blocked by the wires and poles that are set up in our city. And Why don't we have those poles and wires looked at so that they don't have to block the phone calls to the emergency lines? I've also heard people say, I can't get in touch with the police officer because it seems like it's dead. The line is not going through at all. Oh, so what's going to happen to the dead body? They're going to drag it all the way down to maybe a pickup, a van, and load the body into that van or pickup.
Thank you, Ms. Brandhurst.
There's nobody else signed in.
Okay, we will close public comment. Staff, how long do you need to get us reset up and potentially get our tablets working properly? 15? So can you do it in 11? 10:30, we'll come back. We are in recess, and we will reconvene the Board of Fire Commissioners meeting upstairs after our closed session.